Robert here, and I got with me a nice special guest. And Alex, how do you say your last name?
Macris rhymes with
Macris.
cheese.
Yep, Macris of Ascendant Comics, and who's got a campaign going on. In fact, I should put it in the list in I should pin the link right now to it. But so your campaign, it started off based as a um table role playing, right?
Yeah, a tabletop role-playing game called Ascendant, which I
Yep.
released last year, and went on to do really well. Hit number
Hmm.
one on Drive Through RPG. Was sitting in the top 10 for 12 weeks. Number one for 2 weeks. And now we're doing a graphic novel based on the universe where we introduce the characters and sort of the origin story of the Ascendant setting.
Right. So this is pretty much it's I'm trying to find a good way of comparing it. Like when how D&D or Warhammer have had all those type of games or movies fed in their world, but it's like they're telling a tale set in the world, but obviously it's not going to affect how people are going to do the role play, correct?
Right, that's right.
Yeah, I was trying to find the right way to word it because I have a friend who's really into D&D and all that, so she would know how to phrase it a lot better than I would. I just try to come up with what comes to my mind.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's the Ascendant universe is a big universe. There's a lot going on. We narrow in on one particular group of characters in one particular super team, and we use that as a way to kind of introduce what's happening.
Hmm.
The premise of the setting is that it's our world right now, where
Hmm.
people have, they watch DC movies and they read Marvel comics, and right in the middle of our real world, superheroes begin to appear, and what
Hmm.
happens, and what is the impact of that, which is a little bit of a different take on it, right? Like,
Oh
for
yeah.
instance, in The Boys, which it gets compared to a lot, but like in The Boys, um, the superheroes have been around since World War II, and
Right.
they have, in the existing superheroes, like Homelander takes the place of Superman, right? There is no
Hmm.
Superman as a
Right.
fictional character in their universe. There's just Homelander. Whereas, or in The Walking Dead is another example. There were no zombie movies in The Walking
Hmm.
Dead, right?
Oh yeah, that's why they call them walkers.
That's why they call them walkers, right? So when zombies emerge, nobody is like, "Oh, these are zombies." They're like, "Oh my god, this is something we've never encountered before."
Oh, I
In
know, because that's the funny thing. People are always like, "Oh, well, if zombies show up, we know what to do." What if you didn't?
What if you didn't? Well, so the Ascendant universe takes the opposite. What if superheroes emerge in a world where everybody knew about Superman, everybody knew about DC Comics, everybody knew about Marvel Comics? What would they do? And so my premise was that people would freak their shit out because, as we've
Yep.
just seen with like COVID and the war in Ukraine, like in a social media world, things go massively big and people freak out about everything. But at the same time, they would interpret it through the lens of the existing tropes. And so, when people start to develop superpowers, they're like, "Oh my god, I'm a superhero," and they put on
Yep.
capes and start, or they think, "Oh my god, I'm a supervillain," and so the U.S. Department of Defense uses that when they make their superhero team, and they
Right.
create the Star Spangled Squadron. So,
Yep. Right. Yep. Yep. You got it right. We got it all loaded up right here.
awesome, there it is. There's the advanced release copy. That
Hmm.
Yep.
The great cover by Will Conrad. I love his artwork.
He's fantastic. Yeah, we were very lucky to get him to be able to do a cover for us. It was very fortuitous. He was like between two projects, and we were like,
Hmm.
"You've got time," and he had time.
Yep.
So
Yep. And it's just six people and the Capitol building.
right, that's right. Now, at the
So.
time, at the time we made that
Hmm.
cover,
Hmm.
the Capitol building didn't really have any political implications to it. It was just like
Oh.
really nice, wholesome Americana, and then it like became this whole thing. But it wasn't really intended to be a major political statement. It was just intended to be like a feel-good picture of an American team. But sometimes the universe just conspires against me, man.
Right. So, from what I've seen for the opening arc was introducing the character of the Manticore. You mind if
Yep.
I give this little spoiler about it?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, go
Yeah,
ahead.
how he ran an illegal death squad in Iran. So they're basically thinking, giving him pretty much no choice to volunteer for this procedure. But now, were they just banking on him to die or
They were.
something?
They expected him to die. Yeah, every prior test subject had died, which is why they stopped using enlisted
Hmm.
officers and enlisted men and officers, and they switched over to convicts. because
Right.
everyone kept dying, and they were like, well, we'll just refine it based on the fatalities. And
Yeah,
then
but yeah, they end up getting the worst, giving the success to one of the worst people.
exactly, like the one guy you don't want to succeed on. Yeah.
Exactly, and oh boy, yeah, that was just like, oh crap. And now, is this stuff shooting? Is it him swinging his tail, or is it
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. He swings his tail and he releases tail spikes. Yeah.
yeah, that's what I saw. But yeah, just so much as you're just like, wow, what a great first villain. And then of course the stupidity of, and someone even asked, like, with the Brendan Fraser movie, like, why did they do that? Although to be honest, you also have to note if they had tradition back then. They
Yeah.
weren't thinking, like, oh, it's not enough to kill him, but
Right.
also you wouldn't have a movie anyway. But but yeah, then we have the introduction of American Eagle, and I gotta say, this impressed me. And now these are one of the characters whose the powers just come naturally, correct?
Correct. No one really knows the source of his powers in world. If you happen to have read the Ascendant role playing game,
Which I have not. I
you
have
have a
not.
better idea of what's going on. But in the world, no one really understands it. And our hero Bill Goddard, he's just he's just like a God-fearing middle American firefighter who's like a married father of two. And as far as he can tell, they're just a gift from God that he's trying to do the right thing with.
Which I love, and I just love how he's so. Oh yeah, just this one moment here at everything with the girl about to get run over, and yikes, that
Yeah.
was pretty scary. You know what I mean? And yeah, you see the lights and everything. It's like obviously the guy couldn't see her, but that was terrifying.
Yeah, and I mean, he's got powers similar to Superman in that he's super strong, he's invincible, he can
Hmm.
fly, but unlike, Superman, he doesn't have, the ability to hear someone crying out in danger across the galaxy, or, he
Right.
can't, he
It's
doesn't
kept
have
local to Earth, in other
yeah, he
words.
doesn't have super smelling and all these sort of layers and layers and layers of powers. He's essentially Golden Age Superman in the level of his power.
Yep. Now,
And
how the heck did he get a copy of Action Number One?
to reprint,
That's what I thought. I had a feeling, but I just like it how he takes a big risk at seeing if he can fly. For all you know, he could have become street pizza if he didn't work.
That's right. That's right. And I think he's assuming he's invulnerable enough that even if he hits the street, he won't
Yep.
he won't die. But yeah, he takes
Yep.
the leap of faith. Exactly.
Yep. And the fact that later on we find out he's not definitely nowhere near as vulnerable as Superman. You don't need a bomb blast to break his skin.
He's not as invulnerable as he thinks he is. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And, go back one sec though. Go back.
Yep. Yep.
So there's that line there where he's like, "I read the classics," and
Yep.
so the premise, what's happening there is that if you, in today's world, like if you started to develop these superpowers, like how would you relate to them?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like he's an average middle American dude. He isn't going to sit around and think to himself, boy, I'm turning into Gilgamesh from Sumerian myth or something, right? Like he relates to it in sort of the stories of his childhood, which is Action Comics and Superman, and so that's like the lens he interprets it with. And so in a sense, he's a Superman XP because that's how he views himself. It isn't me as the creator trying to make him a Superman XP so much as we're to understand that's his role model. And as you read the graphic novel, you see he makes a lot of mistakes.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Because this is the lens that he's viewing the world, right?
Yep. Especially once Manticore gets out.
Exactly. Whereas Manticore has a lot less illusions about what's going on.
Yep. And I also do like how you have enough time passes that by the time we see him next, he's already learned enough things. Although I like how people call him Cape Guy at first.
It's hilarious, yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, of course, as soon as Manticore gets out, it's like, good times at everything. And you have all these other villains. How many of these are natural? How many of these were other successes?
It's a mix. So I guess I can jump in and share a little bit about that. So the
because I'm curious. Yeah.
Okay, so the premise is that superheroes work as follows. Some human beings have in their genome some unexpressed genes, and those genes can be caused to express through epigenetic changes. And the epigenetic changes can be exposure to EMF fields, they can be chemical pollutants, they can
Ah,
be high stress.
kind of like the meta gene from DC.
I guess similar to that. And so when that gene is expressed, then your body begins to produce what I call metaplasts. So if you think of a chloroplast in a plant,
Right.
produces energy from solar power. A metaplast produces energy from 0 point energy that you can use for your biological purposes. And so some people, through exposure to high stress, their genes have become epigenetically activated and they begin to produce metaplasts. Others, it's artificially induced all of a sudden at once in a shock through, for instance, the Project Ascension experiments. So, so some of those people. So if we're looking at the ones that you've got on screen, we've got Fireball, Serengeti, Toxicant are three that show up later. And so of those, Toxicant was an artificial, Serengeti and Fireball were natural.
I gotcha. Because again, I was just curious on that. And wow, all that guts and everything. The artwork on this, I love the artwork on here. It gets that very classic, that perfect blend of classic and modern that I love seeing. Not too experimental, but not too, old-fashioned either.
That's exactly where we wanted to be. A friend of mine coined the term. I was like, because I kept showing him the comic, and I was like, what age is this, right? Is this Silver Age? Is it Iron Age? And he was like, bro, it's Iridium Age.
I saw you make the comment.
I'm like, what is like, what do you mean? He's like, check it out, right? It's like Silver Age, but it's a heavy metal. And I was like, dude, it's Iridium Age. That is perfect. We had like our moment.
Yep. But and I do like how they're basically like, okay, we try to keep them contained once, we're not going to make that mistake again. I like how they're not idiots about it.
No, they're. I really, so that's like a big pet peeve of me.
They keep on saying, capture him again. It's like,
yeah, I hate when characters are written as idiots. Just
God, yes.
And it's like a cheap way out, make the character stupid, and that creates drama. So I vowed to myself when I became a content creator that I would never do that.
Well, it's similar with me because I have a character I told you off screen named Ninjetta. She has her own mentor spirit figure who gives her a lot of her abilities. And one thing I want to avoid with her was, one thing that drives me nuts is the mentor figure that is so strict rules. So, like, we have a fluke where a kid normally we have an adult, but a kid got the abilities. Oh, but they still got to follow the adult rules. Well, then if not, there's going to be major consequences. I don't mean like the obvious consequences. I'm talking about like, they're so uber strict that you can't even make some exception because you'll let them have friends and anything. It's like, really, stuff like that. So I had it be instead, her name's Sadoka, and she is of that mindset of, I'll give him enough rope to hang himself, but I'm not going to be, and I'm going to judge things based off of the context of it. Like if they kill someone and it was clearly self-defense, I'm not going to strip them of their powers. If they go on wanton killing spree, yeah.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But she will give warnings and all that stuff if they're flaunting if they're in the in-between where they're flaunting it, but they're not going malicious with it.
Exactly.
But at the same time, though, but she does give that vibe of there are no rules, and it's like, did I say that? No, and she's very chill ass. Now, funny thing is, she's a spider spirit.
Yeah.
But now she does have a very sexy humanoid form. But yeah, when you see her, you would not think the spider spirit would be so chillax and chilled and easygoing. You expect her to be, like, and that's the thing I have it be. There's other spirits, many have their own champions, and like their leader is a T-Rex spirit, but he's very wise and sageful, and you're like, well, he's been around since the early days of life on Earth. Well, he's the only dinosaur spirit left.
So he's a 64 million, when you talk about an ancient mentor, this guy is 64 million years old.
Yep. He's never picked a champion yet, but he's going to eventually. But the way spirits work is they get their strengths through three things: their age, their notoriety, and and from their champions. You can't get much more well-known than the T-Rex, especially when he's also gaining all of the abilities from anything dinosaur-loving, because he's the only dinosaur spirit left. He held on by sheer force of will. He was near ready to just give up existence and, fade away, until they found the first dinosaur bones, and then he was re-energized, and that's why he's the king of the spirits.
Nice. I dig
But
it.
his own name is he's just the old one. That's all he's known as. Whatever name he had, he long forgot.
So the heroine is the spider spirit.
It's the spider's champion, and now, but in her case, it's actually I'll show you my character, the character, if you don't mind.
Sure.
And then we'll get back to this, but yeah, though, and with hold on, but yeah, I mean, like, Sudoka basically comes up with a way, like almost everyone, they just simply give them one set of power energy, and it just goes on to the next champion. It's just one set. Sudoka, however, came up with this web of energy where every champion she has, once they die, a copy of their spirit and their power goes into this pool. It's kind of like the Avatar state from Avatar.
Yeah, totally.
But in this case, though, the energy is added into the pool. So for each one that's moved on, the pool, the energy is added more and more and more, and that their current champion can tap into that energy, what they call the ancestral state.
Nice. See, I like it when there's been effort made to actually think through like the metaphysics of how it all works.
Oh, yeah,
it makes the whole thing, as compared to, like, I hate this modern trend where they'll blow up the entire canon that's been established for 50 years, conveniently, just because it makes the writer's room job easy for that episode. Like classic example is what the recent Star Wars sequels were just, they ram people at light speed now. And
then they had to later say that was 1,000,000 to 1 odds.
Yeah, and you're like, come on, bitches. Like, if you could ram people at light speed, the whole Death Star scene is totally different. So,
yep.
Oh, yeah, nice.
Yep. This was done by Ron Friends, because you tell one of the main inspirations was Spider-Girl, Mayday.
Yep.
So this was one of my earliest commissions, and I still love it. And yep, there's a bit from her, and sorry, I'm trying to find it.
Yeah, you do a bunch of different styles for her. Yeah. If I ever encounter a woman who has chopsticks in her hair, I just assume she's an assassin.
But the funny thing is, though, okay, you ever know about Rugrats? This is my fan fiction version of Kimmy Finster from Rugrats.
Hilarious. That's great.
But now I do have an actual original version. That's the girl on the right, Chloe, which would be the granddaughter of Kimmy. But she's the one. But I do have a version that's not fan fiction related, of course, that I would rely on. It started off as fan fiction. I came up with a bunch of teaming up these characters, but I started coming up with more original characters until eventually I'm like, you know what? I could just totally disregard the fan fiction stuff and make it my own.
Well, there's so much of like the most successful writing these days is emerging out of fan fiction and then being kind of like expanded to its own thing. And it's you've had an enormous amount of art.
I know, but yeah, this is the jewel character I told you off screen. This was L.A. Garza did this one, Angel Medina, Art Balthazar, Craig and Rosia, George Perez. Oh,
yeah.
J. Scott Campbell, free sketch, Jeremy Freeman, who's normally just an inker, but yeah, he was willing enough to do that. Jimmy Gonley, Joe Prado, Katie Cook.
You've had a few of my very favorite artists in here. That's epic.
Nate Lovett, Phil Hester. This was a free sketch, but you wouldn't know it, would you?
Yeah, you wouldn't.
Yeah. Phil Jimenez, Todd Nowick. Yeah, and these are from my friend, her co-creator Dan. These are all his ones, but yeah, Chuck Fears Jewel.
Epic.
But then, hold on, let me then move on ahead to yeah, you can see a bunch of other hold on, come on.
Wow, you've had so much art commission. You could have done your own graphic novel at this point.
Yep, this is the big villain named Mr. Andy Lanning did this one. Angel Medina did this one. Chris Burnham did this one. Dan Fraga did this one. And Daniel HDR. Dave Gibbons.
Nice.
Jim Starlin did this one. This was a free sketch. And but this one, Nora Rampman. Okay, if you notice some of these guys, they've given them a mask. That's because the original, the reference bit here, they keep on saying there's a mask there. There isn't. But when I told that to Norm Rampman, what did he do? he took it and actually made it a birthmark. And ever since then, I'm like, that's canon now. That is officially canon. That is,
Oh,
I am
nice.
keeping that because I love that so much. He's surprising me. I'm like, whoa. But yeah, Shane Davis and Tim Seeley did this one.
Wow. Wow.
Very noble. And and this one, I think I told you about him, Desikim. This is Visceru, and that is his arch rival, Demetria. The funny
Nice.
thing is though, Visceru, you could probably guess, especially with his skin color, very much based off of Grand Admiral Thrawn,
Yeah, totally.
Thanos,
I'm
and
getting the Thrawn
Darkseid.
vibe for sure.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, he's very noble. And the thing is, his species are called Garurians, uber powerful. Like he could go toe to toe with Thor going all out and survive. And that's his natural power.
Nice.
But what do they do? Due to some machinations behind the scene by one of their more notorious ones, they believe they are the most perfect race in the universe. Why? Well, it's later revealed one of their own, a great scientist, scientifically proved they were perfect, but he did it to end a war, them infighting. But then instead, Macris is his name, he killed the scientist and decided we are the most perfect. We shouldn't go. Now, he wanted them to become conquerors, but instead they decided we will go to every planet of people we feel worthy and test them. By test them, we mean fight them, and if their species survives, they will, we will move on. If they die, which most of them do, we will take over their planet and wipe them all out. But they always gave them the option of you are free to leave the planet, and if you do, we will not test you on whatever new planet you go on. So in their way, they have this twisted sense of nobility, but they're still wiping out worlds.
As you do when you're the most powerful,
Yeah, but the thing with Visceru, though, he is noble, but he also knows how wrong what they're doing is. But he also knows they've been doing this for millennia. He can't just say anything because he was around when the Civil War happened, and his own best friend turned on him, joined the resistance side, and the love of his life got killed. And she was on his side.
Well, if there's one thing comics have taught me is that if a perfect alien race ever comes to the planet, they're absolutely there to test us or exterminate us.
Yep, but Demetria, though, is the second. He is the greatest conqueror. He does that through, rather than brute force, militaristic might, he does it through coming up with these strategies, plans. But the reason why is he eventually knows he's the best one at doing it. Anyone he would teach would not be as good, but they would be interested and they know just how good of a planning it is because of how effective it is. But they eventually would be failing, more likely to fail, thus causing more races to naturally succeed. So it's a long game. Unfortunately, many races are wiped out in the meantime, but that's what he's trying to do. But whereas Demetria, her tactics are much more like a Power Ranger villain. Send in forces to attack and all that stuff, but she's the second greatest, and it's always hated being second rate.
Now, is this the same universe as the
same universe and
common universe?
Yep, same universe. In fact, the reason why I had the old one decide he's going to make his own champion is because the spirits from other worlds are coming to Earth. And now remember, he's the most powerful, and one came to Earth, and he almost got killed.
Got it.
And so you can think about it. No one is as old or as well known as the old one. No one's as powerful as him. And yet you have spirits from another world coming here that nearly killed him.
Yep.
Yeah, things have to change. But the thing is, though, I have Visceru. He very much becomes more of a noble anti-villain and then eventually ally, whereas Demetria, she ends up becoming one of the worst of the villains, mostly because she's beyond petty. She doesn't care what she does, and eventually she gets her own, she gets a power boost and everything, and hold on, let me see if I can find that one too. And when she deals with, and I'll show you my friend, another character that a friend of mine created, named, the character name is Tri-Spirit Warrior. Can I move it over there? Oh, come on. Darn it. I'm going to have to do a different one. I hate when that happens where you can't share it, in the same window. Just a sec.
Yeah, I've never used this Restream Studio
Oh
that
yeah.
we're using. I
And
guess
here we
a
go.
lot of other folks have been using it though. I guess this is the cool hotness for
Yep.
doing live streams,
But
huh?
that's Dimitri again, but more monstrous.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
You
If
know,
you saw how short she was, now look at her.
yeah. If someone offered me a power up, but I had to become monstrous, I don't think I'd take it.
Oh, she didn't have a choice. Their
Oh,
mentor Makai, Vitru and the heroes killed him, but he's been surviving by using a technique that allows him to take over another person's body and basically overwrite it and replace himself. He tried to do that to Demetria, his favorite student, but her will was stronger and she stopped him partway through. So that's why she's like this. She basically was in the middle, becoming like Makai, but it failed.
gotcha.
But yeah, that's Tri-Spirit Warrior, and that's there's Ninjetta in her ancestral state, which is basically like going Super Saiyan, but it's silver.
Gotcha.
But yeah, we can
Awesome.
get back. But yeah,
You got
yeah.
you have a ton of really great artists on tap, man. You could practically be an art agent and just hook people up.
But it cost me a lot of money to get all those artwork. You do not. You could. I know you probably could imagine how much.
Trust me. Yeah, having just finished Star Spangled Squadron, I definitely imagine.
Hmm.
Yeah, good artists, definitely worth the weight in gold.
Yeah, but yeah, back to that. I mean, eventually, yeah, I've noticed. Yeah, with all this stuff with Manticore again. That is just so amazing. All of this destruction and everything, and yeah, we're out of pieces. We're out of moves. But I just like how, without a second thought, he just heads right out there. And I do like how you include social media into this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I was trying to point out that people's initial reaction would probably think they were seeing a movie, right? It's like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
they
much
must be,
like Stan Lee. That's a Stan Lee thing.
yeah, they must be filming a Marvel movie or something. And but then sort of the horror of what he's seeing gradually dawns on him. And
Yep. And here's what you were saying about him making a mistake.
yep,
Oh yeah, Cape Guy, and oh, unfortunately, more people get killed because of his rookie mistake.
yep. Well, we don't want to go through the whole thing and give
Oh,
away
I
what
know. That's why I
happened.
was stopping it. That's why I was stopping up at this point. But again, I just wanted to get to the point where you said he makes a mistake, and yeah, that's a royal mistake. Actually,
Yep.
no. The other thing was to be right here. There we go. He's like,
Take
this,
another one. Yeah,
I
yeah.
should have dodged it. Ooh. But I know so without showing any further, he's still fine though. It's like it doesn't weaken him. It's obviously bleeding, but is it the idea he's still not that weakened, even when he's bleeding, or what?
I mean, he's hurt, but he's fired up on adrenaline, and he's
Ah, yeah.
channeling more and more of his power as the fight goes on. He's never really pushed himself to his limits. He's never encountered anyone like himself before. So,
Right. Like
um,
Manticore and all that.
yeah.
So yeah, though, I mean, but again, just so now when you did it as the tabletop RPG, of course. Oh, hey Bianca. That's the girl right there in the chat. Um,
Hello.
yep. So like you said, this was based off a tabletop role RPG and everything. And
Yep.
so how much of a, like, you only have one volume of that, right? But how much in that, like how much of the world is set up in that? I'm asking these questions, and remember, I
Yeah.
don't know anything about tabletop
Sure.
role playing.
Well, the book for the role playing game is a big book. So this is the role playing game, and
Whoa.
it's a hefty tome.
Mm-hmm.
So it's 500 pages. So there's a lot of stuff in the game. It opens with about 30 pages of story, which is all
Mm-hmm.
presented in an epistolary format as like news articles, social
Mm-hmm.
media, all presented
Right.
like in character story. And then we head into the game rules, and then at the end, I introduce a bunch of starting characters, and then all the different organizations in the world. So there's the Star Spangled Squadron.
Mm-hmm.
There's Dreadnought, which is a private police force that uses superheroes.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Exodus, which is a terrorist group that believes
Right.
that superheroes, or rather that superhumans are as to humans as humans are to apes, and so it's trying to get everyone to.
Oh, so kind of like without the, kind of similar like to Magneto's Brotherhood almost.
I guess, yeah. I was more of a DC guy than a Marvel guy, so I
Right. Right.
can't claim deep expertise in that. But
Right. I understand.
yeah, definitely a sense of, well, like the leader of the group is a former professor of Nietzschean philosophy, right? And so he
Oh.
literally believes that he's become an Ubermensch, and
Oh no.
and so and that he's transcended humanity and is beyond good and evil, and now
Hmm.
others do the same. And so they go around under the theory that that which does not kill you makes you stronger, and so they do random acts of terror,
Hmm.
and by doing their random acts of terror, they hope to create other superheroes,
I
supervillains.
get you. I get you. I get you. So basically, they hope to be what? How long have I been showing my characters? Not as long as I usually do. but um, but yeah, though. But I gotta say though, just looking through, yeah, I definitely get a DC vibe, and this very bit of like optimistic world. I mean, because I'll be honest, I'm so tired of the cynical world, especially some of the DCEU movies we've had over the past few years. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't say optimistic. I would say American Eagle is an optimistic character.
Right.
The character of Stiletto is less optimistic.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Some of the others have a mix. I wanted to offer a realistic world, right? Like,
Right.
one of the things that annoyed me, for instance, about Game of Thrones is people are
Hmm.
like, "Oh, it's so realistic," but it actually wasn't realistic. It was actually you took the Middle Ages, but then you took all good parts of the Middle Ages and you remove them, right? Like there was no
Hmm.
faith, there was no hope, there was no chivalry. It was purely the worst aspects of it, and they were like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
that's realistic." But no, that's just crap sack. So
Exactly. Oh yeah. Crap sack world. Ugh.
just crap sack. So what I'm trying to show in Ascendant is, I want to show the good, the beautiful, the true,
Hmm.
um, and then to show that you have to contrast that with the ordinary and with the evil. And I'm trying to
Right.
show all those sides of things. So
But what I meant
Mark,
was like what I meant to was like kind of like Man of Steel, the Snyderverse stuff.
yeah,
How
yeah,
those basically got to the point where it's like, oh, we'll eventually get to the optimism. Yeah, while you keep spinning your wheels.
right,
I
exactly.
mean, I don't
You
know where
know,
you stand on it, but I was not a fan of it. And funny thing is, I was one of those who at first defended Man of Steel, but then when the other movies come up and I realized where he was going with it, I'm like, I take it back. I take it back. You had no plan, or what plan you did have wasn't from you. It was from Goyer, and you went your own direction.
right. I mean, I really like Zack Snyder as a director.
Hmm.
I love his
Oh,
directorial
great
style.
directing. Yes,
I love what he did with 300. I love what he did with Watchmen. I think I wish he just hadn't gone as dark as he did with
exactly.
the universe. One thing I appreciated is that he didn't just make it a reskin of the Marvel movies where
Oh yeah,
everyone is, where the whole thing is sort of tongue in cheek. Like I appreciated the seriousness. I just wish Man of Steel had been a little less nihilistic in its messaging.
exactly. Well, I say this. I'm the only thing I liked about the Joss Whedon cut was how Superman was at the end, because that felt like the closest we ever had to DC animated Superman in live action. The way he was
Right,
acting
right.
with the end, like him carrying that house and everything after Flash ran with saving those people, and it's like, oh, I did it. He topped me. It just felt like such something that Superman would do, and it felt like without going Christopher Reeve Superman, it felt though was in that ballpark of what Superman should be, not this. Oh, I'm an alien. I'm an outsider. Which
Yeah, exactly,
I know some people
exactly.
say was, oh, he got over that at the end of Man of Steel. Not from what it seemed like Snyder had in mind. It felt like Snyder wanted to go be. You shouldn't have had to break Superman to make him the Boy Scout.
I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
I
yeah.
wanted to, in one of the ways I've described Star Spangled Squadron is that it's Christopher Reeve Superman teams up with Pamela Anderson's Barbed Wire, and
Yes.
they go fight Friedrich Nietzsche. So um,
Yep, and I love the other characters you had. The other two females.
Aurora and Doctor Quantum.
Yeah, I love both of them. Those were like, yeah, Aurora especially. It's like I'm a star, and I was just like a thought. I was like, what does she mean by that?
TV star. Yeah, no, she's a ton of fun to write, and
Oh
the
yeah,
Doc
I know. I'm the fan service. You're for the goss.
right? Yeah,
I love again the writing there. I'm just like, this is perfect. Good, fun writing without going too much into the Marvel farcicalness. Which,
right.
let's be honest, that's what Marvel has, when done poorly, has become. It's become a farce.
Well, the thing is that in the world, Aurora's not wrong. Like
Hmm.
the U.S. military is actually does have a propaganda arm that is
Hmm.
in fact trying to meet different target demographics with their team, and they aren't
Exactly.
purposefully giving them silly costumes and code names, because the military's thinking is like, it's like, look, if we're like, these are super soldiers who are humans of mass destruction, that's really scary. But
Yeah.
if you put them in like goofy costumes and give them code names and have licensed comic books about them, then people are like, oh, that's awesome, they're superheroes. And so the military is doing this all on purpose. So like Aurora, because she's like a social media pop culture junkie, is
Hmm.
totally clued into this, but like nobody really takes her seriously. Um,
Yep.
so it's all. So what I realized is that it was that if you set everything in the real world, people would, in a sense, behave the way you see them behave in Marvel movies, but they would do it because it's life imitating art. And so
Hmm.
what I've done is like art imitating life, imitating art, imitating life. And anyway,
Yep. Well, yeah, but
so
and that's one other thing though that always bothered me when some people say, "Oh, it's set in the real world," but at the same time they want to go to the whole notion of like, "Oh yeah," but at the same time, "Oh, these events clearly aren't helping our windows, so we got to make it hush hush." It's like, no, no, you want to write it like the real world, but still make it fantastical, of course.
right, right.
Yeah, because I know that's one of my friends who I have who works with me on some of this stuff as a co-writer. I don't know if you ever heard of this website. There's a website that says the Fantastic Four was the great American novel
Oh
and
yeah, I love that
great website.
website.
Oh, I love that website. But unfortunately, it sent my friend into thinking this whole notion of that the website gives about how, oh, because how they kept it realistic. Like, oh, obviously this stuff couldn't happen. Like this whole notion of it could fit in the real world. And I'm just like, yeah, but to a detriment in that regard, the way
Hmm.
the guy was looking at it. And unfortunately, my friend took it way too seriously. And we sometimes butt heads when I'm trying to say, I want to embrace the fantastical. And he thinks I want to go overboard. I'm like, no, no.
Right.
I don't want to change the world and make it all futuristic like Superman the anime series. But I want to still acknowledge, like, have them have these big fights that might destroy some buildings.
Right. So what I'm aiming to do with Star Spangled Squadron is it starts off essentially in, as close as I could make it to our world, and
Mm-hmm.
then it gradually diverges as
Right.
stuff goes out of control and gets crazier and crazier. And so in a sense, at some point in the future, like I think the Star Spangled Universe is going to become, the Ascendant Universe is going to become like this really zany gonzo over the top place.
Yeah.
But it doesn't start there. It starts off
Right.
really familiar to us. And and in a sense, you can like imagine, people having these conversations where they're talking about the new normal in the same way that we had, the new normal of COVID and the Cold Wars and things.
Yep.
Like for them, their new normal is superheroes.
Yep.
And
Or you have those who. Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
oh
You
no,
have those who grew up in it now, and that's all they know. It's like,
that's all they
what do you
know.
mean normal? This is normal.
Exactly, and that'll be the future of the setting. Yeah.
Yep. Now, do you have anything involving the multiverse with your stuff? Or have you ever gotten that far? Would that be like the next book in the table RPG rule books and all that?
So all I can say is in the role playing game, without going into too much detail, I do have some reference to some extra dimensional entities.
Mm-hmm.
So so there is other stuff happening, but
Mm-hmm.
and I have it plotted out. So I have this joke that I put more planning into the chronologies of like my Dungeons and Dragons game than they did into the planning of the Star Wars sequels. So like so I actually have all the secrets worked out. I've got the whole timeline for the universe built out, backwards and
Mm-hmm.
forwards, how it all fits together. So yeah, I absolutely have plans in that. But I don't want to spoil it all. But yeah, it's there.
All right, because I've told you also off screen, I'm a big multiverse junkie. Always loved the idea of this infinite number of universes where some character, as Night Owl, as Owlman, I mean, put it during Crisis on Two Earths, some worlds are so radically different. Others are so minuscule difference. It would take you a lifetime to figure out what the differences were.
Right.
I
Yeah, the
just love the idea
multiverse is such an awesome,
concept. Yeah.
concept that you can use for storytelling. Yeah, we did one in the role playing game as a session. We did a multiverse session where they
Hmm.
went to a world where World War One had never ended, and
Oh
so
yes.
so they had superheroes battling on the trenches of World War One. It was kind of fun. So.
Oh, very much like a very different take on the Earth's X concept, where it was World War II in that regard.
Yep. This was World War I and never ended. So, you
Yeah.
had trench warfare extending across Europe and battle mechs and stuff. It was good times.
Oh yeah, definitely. So when it comes to in crowdfunding, were there and like obviously you did a success with your first campaign, obviously with the rule book and all that, but what was some of your influence, your inspiration on how to do this campaign? Was there anything like did you guys know what to do and did it on your own, or did you look at other campaigns and take some example from them?
So I've been doing crowdfund campaigns since 2011.
Ah,
I started with Adventure Conquer King System back in 2011, and have
gotcha.
done one a year since then.
Oh, all right.
With I missed 1 year. We didn't do one because we had a delay on our book, and then I missed 1 year. I didn't do one because of the shipping delays of getting Ascendant out.
Oh boy, yep.
But overall, so I've done a total of 10 over 12 years.
Mm,
But this was my first comic book, and I noticed
right,
what people wanted to see for comic book Kickstarters was a lot different for crowdfunding campaigns. So I did. I took a lot of really careful research. I went to dozens of different crowdfunding pages, and I took notes of what everyone offered at what levels, what sort of videos they did, what sort of backer rewards people were
right,
into. Like, and I had have like this goofy spreadsheet of like average number of covers, price per
right.
page, and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, I did a ton of research, and ended up deciding like, okay, it looks like I need to have alternative covers. That's a really important
Oh,
thing.
that really helped.
Yeah.
Now, were there any, without naming any projects, you do not need to name any projects. Were there any do's and what kind of don'ts? You gave me a bunch of do's, but what were there any don'ts you picked up on from other campaigns? You wanted to avoid or not do?
Um, so yes, for me, the number one don't was I don't want to crowdfund something that I'm not ready to produce.
Oh,
Um,
good, good.
yeah. So as you saw, the whole thing's done, right? Like
Yep,
the comic is written,
yep.
inked, colored,
Colored
lettered,
everything. It's ready to just gotta go print off.
and
Well, Bianca, he said this is his first comic campaign, not his first crowdfunding in general.
right. It's my 11th crowdfunding in general. First
Right,
comic. Yeah.
right. But so yeah, because trust me, I've seen that. I mean, one notoriously, again, not naming names, but it's like over 2 years now, and it's like, when is that coming out?
Right.
Oh, and I'm not going to go in. I'm not going to go into that, but it just feels like there are some crowdfunding books I really love, like Common America. I'll just specify that one. Common America
They're
is
awesome.
one of my all-time favorites. That and Black Hops. You have Mark Polton's work, Graveyard Shift, U.S. Assassin, Sea Dog, and Codename Killswitch. He chugs out just as many as Tim Lim and Mark Pellegrini do at the same time. And I love those ones because it's like they're making this big world, they're expanding, they're coming out relatively timely. And then you have some of the ones that take a bit of length of time, like Doug's and April's work, but they're worth it in the end.
Hmm.
And then but it feels like earlier I threw my money at a bunch of them, but nowadays I am regretting a whole bunch of them because they're still taking forever to come out, and it feels like they don't care.
Yeah.
They have more
Yeah.
other things to worry about. And again, I'm not naming names, but those anyone watching this, you probably know who I'm talking about. Just feels like I don't like being taken for granted. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do know exactly what you mean. I was very frustrated because I had my Ascendant game finished,
Mm-hmm.
and it then sat 6 months waiting to be shipped because of shipping problems.
A
So
good question here.
how do you
Yeah.
imagine making the characters and why? And that was answered already. All right, so the characters actually emerged out of a role-playing game campaign, the Star Spangled Squadron role-playing game campaign,
Mm-hmm.
and I collaboratively created them for the various players that were in my gaming group. So the character of Stiletto was actually my wife's character. So,
Ah,
so Stiletto was my wife's character. American Eagle was my friend Mike's character. Warp was my friend Newton's character. And each of them has their own kind of like uh, uh, quirky personality traits and particular interests. And so I was trying to make superheroes that I thought would appeal to them, and those characters kind of emerged. And when I decided to make the graphic novel, it was natural to use the characters that had already been set up in the world. So
Right. So, and one other thing I want to make it kid I also do love is that there's so much bang for your buck. 96 pages. That's worth $30 right there. Yeah, because oh boy, you wouldn't believe my time seeing one that's like, oh, $60 for a 48 page and another smaller page book. It's like,
right.
no, 96. That's worth $30 right there. I mean, the only other one I've had that was worth that much, that was very thick, besides Naples' book, was you should look up this book, Monster MD.
Mm.
It was perfectly well worth it in the end, like over 100 pages, well worth the delay because the artwork was incredible. And again, no, it's just stuff like the books like that where I'm like, they do respect us. The delay was worth it. They still kept us in touch, and in the end, it worked out. And I wouldn't mind backing him again if I could afford it.
Well,
Fortunately for you, yeah. Sorry, go
it's
ahead.
like I was saying, man. My last campaign was this book.
Yeah. Oh, and how much was
So,
that for each book?
this was $60 a book, and
Oh, worth
it's
it.
like
Worth it.
it's like a full color hardcover, you know.
Exactly.
And
Worth it. If I was into that stuff, I would have gotten that.
you know, so
Oh, wow. Oh, wow, that artwork.
yeah, I mean, this, same art team.
Yep.
And so from my point of view, writing a 96-page graphic novel was a hell of a lot easier than writing a 500-page role-playing game.
Right.
So I was really surprised when I actually looked at the relatively small size of most graphic novel Kickstarters or crowdfunding campaigns, typically 22, 48 pages, whatnot. So I wasn't sure if I was making a mistake. Like, was I?
Oh no, you weren't. You weren't. I think more people want, like I said, more people are more wanting bang for their buck nowadays. I think at reasonable prices, not stupid
Right.
prices. I mean, again, I bring up Naples' book, but his is over like 100 pages book, and I got when it was Bigfoot Bill. I also got the reprint of the first book, and in the end, it cost me $60 for over almost 300 pages.
Right, which is a great deal. That's a great
Yeah, that
deal.
was a fantastic deal. Yeah, and I the same month from another campaign that's uber late, but I won't name names. Not even close to that many pages. It's like,
yeah,
you know what I mean. It's just really so. That's why that's what I look at it. I look at like how much is it going to cost. I mean, again, Common America, brilliant price. That's like $15 for these books that are like over 40 pages.
Yeah, he's done really well.
Yeah, so
and just a great vibe. Like, how can you not like that?
Oh yeah. Oh, how can you not? Yeah.
Like if you don't like that, you're not my friend. It's like
Exactly. And I've had them on many times. I've had both of them on multiple times actually. Just great guys
nice.
to have them on.
Yeah.
Now I noticed there was a Bounty in the Comic interview that apparently one of the artists worked on Stiletto and all that had some backlash or something. What happened there?
Oh yeah, Jinky Coronado, sure. So she was the original. She did the original character designs for Aurora and for Stiletto. Jinky was a former FHM lingerie model. She was a beauty queen pageant winner in the Philippines.
Oh really?
Yeah, just absolutely beautiful person. And
oh yeah, I've seen the pictures of her. Yeah, she is.
And she draws. She says, her quote was, she draws women who look like herself. And she gets so much hate online. Like, you just can't believe it. You go to her Instagram page and so many haters. And it's this very strange viewpoint that, literally here we have a woman who was a beauty queen winner is drawing women that look like her, and then you have these men coming onto her page telling her that nobody looks like the character she's drawing.
Men saying that? What? What?
Yeah, it's so crazy, right? It's surreal.
Okay,
so anyway.
these sound. If I'll be honest, these sound like the kind of men who are just saying that because they're either their girlfriend or their person they want to impress to go on a date with are right nearby, and they're trying to look like the big guy.
That may be the case. I mean, my own wife was a model when she worked in Los Angeles, and
exactly. These people exist. Why do they act like they don't exist?
Exactly.
I mean, okay. Exactly. You look at the old image artwork, especially when Liefeld would drop. There were some women with some proportions. You're like, you really would ask, where are her organs? But it's like, but most artists don't do that. And then you're just like, what? Again, they look like normal women that do exist. They might not be common, but they're not impossible.
No, go on Instagram. They exist. Even the ones that look like Rob Liefeld characters exist on Instagram. It's pretty
Oh
wild.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
just feels so like what does the world come to that you have people who you look at this stuff, this stuff, and they're like, wow. Now, if from what Liana is telling me, you actually were one of the big guys at the Escapists in the early days. She had put it back when it was saner.
I was the founder of the
Yeah.
Escapist, actually.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
I founded it and
Mm-hmm.
raised the money for it and was its
Mm-hmm.
publisher since from day one, from 2005 to 2016. So yeah, I ran it for over 11 years, won 6 Webby Awards.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, picked
Yeah,
the
I mean,
team, ran the whole thing.
yeah, no. But you look at now, especially when people are like, now, the only person in the Escapists I still watch is Yahtzee. I think he hasn't changed a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Yahtzee Croshaw is incredibly talented. We
yep,
found him
yeah.
when he was posting on something awful, randomly posting funny videos,
Mm-hmm.
and
Oh, I remember from his adventure games, the Chazelle Mythos is what I love
yep,
him for.
yep. And so we brought him in, and he was our first video show on the Escapist, and instantly, we saw that we're like, man, video is the future. And so then after
Yep.
that, we brought in the guys from Unskippable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, which was Loading Ready Run, built them
Right.
out into a bunch of stuff, and just started adding
Yep.
all sorts of video shows. And that was 2007. Yahtzee
Mm-hmm.
joined the Escapist team, and
Yep.
blew up after that. We won 3 Webby Awards in 2008. It was
Mm-hmm.
really good. It was a
Yep.
really exciting time to be in game journalism, right on the transition from print to video.
Exactly, but then it just feels like if you don't mind me giving my own honest opinion about where things are currently, you have not like Jim Sterling. Oh, where he's gone. Oh boy, it's like I can't even watch his videos anymore with some of his opinions and all that. It just feels like what happened to some people out there, right?
I honestly stopped following a lot of that
Mm-hmm.
a couple of years back.
Oh, I don't
Uh,
blame you. I don't blame you.
Yeah, I migrated my attention over to role-playing games and to comic books more than video games. So
Mm-hmm.
I kind of have stepped away from that scene. I think what happened is that this is kind of big picture, right? This isn't
Right, right,
specific
right,
on one
right,
person in
right.
particular, but big picture. So in the early days of video game journalism, the gamers didn't have access to the gameplay footage, and so they really had to rely on game reviewers to let them know what was going to be good and what was coming. And so
Mm-hmm.
really good, really detailed game reviews were a big deal,
Right.
early access. So, but then over time, when you've got, when you can go see on Twitch, you can see someone streaming the game. You don't really
Oh
need to
yeah.
rely on a reviewer. You can now just watch the game being played, or you can get a demo of it, or you can try
Mm-hmm.
their early access on Steam. And so this changed the gamer's relationship to information to where now they didn't need the journalists for information anymore. And so
Right.
the journalists weren't like, well, they don't need us for that anymore, so I guess I'll go be accountants. So
Mm-hmm.
they repositioned to stay relevant. And so what happened is the journalists repositioned to be cultural critics.
Right.
But as cultural critics, you make your job by, basically a cultural critic, his job is to make people angry and upset and to
Mm-hmm.
criticize. And so the cultural critics of gaming, they started to really critique gaming, and that upset, a lot of the
Oh
audience.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Especially especially as it got more political as it went on,
it
and
got
then
more
it became,
political, exactly.
and especially if it became all like, oh, if you're on this side, you have these beliefs, then you're a horrible person. It's like,
Yeah,
okay, where'd this come from? But
yeah.
so now, where's your stance on where comics are currently? Because I'll just say this much, mine. Yes, there's issues. Yes, there's problems. But I think then you have some people who are blowing it out of proportion at the same time. Where do
Well,
you stand?
yeah, my take on it is this, right? So I think comics, games, sort of pick your poison.
Right?
I think it's a good thing that there are comics for everyone. I think it's a good thing that there are
Mm-hmm.
video games for everyone. I think it's a bad thing when you try and tell creators that every comic has to be for everyone and every video game has to be for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
for instance, if you want to make a comic and it's incredibly bloody and violent and sexual,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to turn off a lot of people who don't want that, that's
Mm-hmm.
okay. Make that comic for those people who want that. If you want
Exactly.
if you want to make your comic and it has a protagonist that I totally don't relate to, it's no one like me, and this comic doesn't speak to me, that's
Hmm.
totally okay. Make
Oh
that
yeah,
comic, sell it to the people that it does relate to. If you want to
exactly.
do a comic where all the girls look like Victoria's Secret models, go for it. If you want
Yes,
to make a comic where none of them look like Victoria's Secret models, go for it.
and that's why I
Like,
feel like we have both sides. It's not just one side. It started out was one side, but I feel like the pushback from the other side has gotten to a point where now it's both sides are pushing at the other side, and now it's like, oh, you can't have that. Well, you can't have that. It's like,
yeah.
okay, when did this happen?
Well, I mean, what's happened is it's because certain characters that people are really attached to
Oh
feel
yeah.
like they're being used as pawns in this struggle.
Oh
And
yeah, yeah.
because
Like
I was
Superman, Superman, for example. I mean,
right,
Superman's one of my favorites, and I'll be honest, I don't mind the change of his catchphrase. Truth, justice, better tomorrow. Not a big deal, but at the same time, no, I can understand when they were doing this up with his son, and they were just saying, "Oh, Superman's bisexual now." It's like, no, Superman's son is bisexual, but there's no marketing in that. It's just like
right,
it's the stuff like
right,
that where I'm like, I can get why people get upset, but at the same time, it's also like, okay, can we not go that far on either side? Just that's why
yeah,
I say it feels like both sides have gotten. You have the people who claim they're the new fans, and the old fans should move out, and you have the people who are claiming we're the old, long-standing fans, and no one else should come in here because they're going to ruin it. It's like
hmm
two sides of the same coin.
yeah. I mean, I get why people are upset too.
Hmm.
My sense is it's like at the end of the day, you can't really, and this is tragic, right? But
Oh yeah.
we're seeing this now with Tolkien. Is at the end of the day, you
Hmm.
can't expect for-profit corporations to treat their
Uh,
intellectual property with
yes.
respect with respect for the canon, right? The canon
Exactly.
is to them, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just,
Hmm.
it's a ledger on an accounting spreadsheet, and they're
Well,
going
it's
to treat it
Tolkien. We should.
as
I'm
such.
sorry. It was Tolkien. We should be at least glad we got the Jackson movies
Yeah,
at least.
exactly. And that was only because Christopher Tolkien, his son, didn't treat it that way. And the moment he passed away, it just
The state
became
didn't know. The estate had no idea what to do.
a brand. So, like it
Hmm.
would be like it's sort of like do we think the product managers at Oreos care about the Oreos canon? And they don't give a shit. They sell cookies, right?
Oh no,
And
the M&Ms. M&Ms. That was sick. Was
right,
M&Ms.
right,
Given
they
what
don't give a shit, right? They sell M&Ms. Same
I
thing is
know.
true with
Oh, just
Superman, right?
yep, let's give the green one shoe and sneakers instead of her sexy boots.
So I just basically expect that those corporations are going to treat these things like shit, and so
Hmm.
I'm therefore not going to care about them anymore, and I'm going to
Oh
go
yeah.
focus on I'm going to go focus on product that's being created by independent creators who don't treat that stuff like shit.
Exactly. Now that doesn't mean there aren't still some creators that are still currently working there, like Action Comics and stuff on War World.
Sure.
Very
Yeah,
good story. Damn good story. I am loving it.
absolutely. You can still make but they're just constrained in
Oh,
ways
very
that
much so.
independent creators aren't constrained. Yeah.
I know,
So
exactly.
that's
Unless
my
you're
take on it.
yep. Yeah, unless you're like a Joshua Williamson who's doing the big event, but even then he's constrained, I'm sure.
Absolutely, they're constrained.
I
So
know. Yeah.
I think it's and I mean, look, the state of America,
Oh yeah.
America is in a culture war, so of course our pop culture is going to be used as a pawn in the culture war. And that sucks. It sucks
Oh
to be in
yeah.
that place. Like, no, I think if you went back to the 30 Years' War when Protestants
Mhm.
and Catholics were at each other's throats, like,
We
I
might go
think,
back to that again at this rate, I'm
yeah,
certain.
like I think those people probably thought that sucked. Like they were like, "Hey, this really is terrible. Christendom is tearing itself apart. That really is shitty."
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's shitty. We don't want that.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid of given how they're already like banning Mouse or Why the Last Man. I'm like, oh great, we're gonna have the other side coming back. It just feels like
yeah,
like the
and
culture war, and that's the one thing I kind of realized. Technically, in many ways, the culture war has existed, but it's really broadened now. It used to be
it
like
has.
music and certain things, but now it's gotten to the point where everything's in the culture war, unfortunately now. And
Yeah,
I think that's the thing that most people don't want to accept is that,
yeah.
like I said, the culture war started off one way, now it's become something completely different, but still no different.
Well, if you think if you go back to the 30 Years' War, right, like the
Yep,
Protestant Reformation,
yep,
they each went into it. The Protestants were absolutely
Hmm.
convinced that they were right, and the
Yep.
Catholics were in the service of the Antichrist. And the
All right.
Catholics were absolutely convinced that they were the heirs to the great tradition of Christianity, and
Hmm.
that the Protestants were heretics that were destroying the faith.
Oh boy.
And so they fought each other for literally 3 decades. And I think
Yeah.
something like 1 in 5 people in Germany died during that
Hmm.
era, right? The countryside is devastated. Millions of people get
Hmm.
slaughtered. And at the
Yep.
end of it, nobody wins. And instead, what
Right.
happened is they were like, you know what we should do? Let's agree to disagree.
Oh,
Right? That was us.
oh,
That's literally how the 30-year war ends. They're like, let's agree to disagree and we'll
because in
tolerate.
their hands, they basically had all the extremists wiped out or aged out, and the only ones left were the more comparable
Yeah. And
heads.
so I'm looking at America's culture war now, and I'm like, listen, maybe we could skip the part where we kill each other for 30 years and
Yeah,
let's just agree to disagree. Like, you do
agreed.
you, I'll do me. You can read this, I'll read that, and like it's
Oh yeah,
cool. But
yeah. That's why
you
you
know,
have people like me, probably, and you. I'm assuming Liana, my one of my other friends, Nerdad, all stuff. Comics by Birch. So many people out there who are like, agree to disagree, like what you like, hate what you hate, your
that's
own
right.
opinion, but don't try and tell other people, oh, that sucks because you're not sharing our views.
Yeah, I mean, I have my own strong views, but I don't force them on others, right?
Exactly. Same as
Like
me.
anybody who
Yeah.
wants to ask my opinion about something, like I will, like ask me to rant about the Star Wars sequels, and like I can rant about the Star Wars
Oh,
sequels.
I used
But
to. I mean, the only thing I ever say to Salvador Duvall is Grand Admiral Thrawn, one of my favorite villains. You probably could guess because of Viscera was looking
right, and
how
they
he
just
looks.
like wiped him out of the canon.
Oh,
So
I didn't know Bianca. I did not name drop you. Bianca is also one of the more civil, sane-headed ones as well.
wonderful, wonderful. Hello
Yep.
there.
Yep. Hey, I should get you connected with her. Maybe you have her. She could have you on her show because she's been trying to get some people on. And
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to do. I'm happy to do shows.
Yep.
Just just chilling in my living room, becoming
Yep.
a comic book guy.
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
Now, last question before we wrap up. Do you have any other future volumes in planned out and everything? Like, how far ahead do you have the comics version planned out?
Great question, actually. Yeah, so I have 3 years worth of stuff planned out.
Ooh.
Whether it comes to light, knock on wood, I would love that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's going to depend how well the campaign does. Right now, things are really positive. It's
Yep.
uh, it's doing great. So listen, if the comic comes out and the fans love it and they're like, "This is a great graphic novel," we'll absolutely do more. I've got the
Oh,
world
I'm
ready. I've
already
got
loving it. I'm
everything.
already loving it.
If on the other hand, if by the time the graphic novel comes out, World War III is broken
Oh
out,
God, yeah.
maybe not. So I guess we'll see.
Right, right. So yeah. Alex, thank you so much for coming on. I gotta wrap up anyway. I'm getting a
Yeah.
little bit exhausted. So thank you
Thanks for
so
having me
much
on the
for.
show. I really
Yep.
appreciate it.
Once I get enough money because I'm a bit tight for cash right now. Got a convention, Grand Rapids Comic Con coming up soon. So I got to save up for that. But as soon as I can, I am going to back the book. I'm already
Really
loving
appreciate
it,
it, man.
and I will do it. Other question: would you mind if I do like a mini review just on the first story with what the review copy you sent me? Would you mind if I do that?
Oh, go for it. Yeah, yeah.
All right. So, great. Perfect. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to review the whole thing, obviously. That would be pointless while the campaign's going. So, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone else, for joining
Awesome.
in. And I will see how the campaign goes.
Fantastic. All right. Thanks again for having me on. Cheers.
Yep. Cheers.